All right, welcome back to IAwrestle's Potentially Dangerous. We are moving along here on multiple podcasts thanks to a website called toweltapper.com. They've got a product that has been squeaking a little bit here in the state of Iowa, and everyone that I've seen that's had the product and talked to have loved that. So check that out at toweltapper.com. Those things are going for $15 a pop, and they will be making a big debut at the Clash actually next weekend. So for you that are watching this now and listening, if you're going to be at the Clash, that is something that you can check out, get a feel for it, or maybe something for a school or a little kids tournament near you. So big day today, guys. Second set of rankings, really the actual first set of rankings. The first set is just kind of preseason, from what you guys have to go off of. You're based it off of what coaches actually reach out to you, what kids reach out to you. It's really hard to do that from what I've been told by you guys. Was this set harder for you guys to get it right or easier because you actually had results and you knew where kids were going to be wrestling?
I think this set's a lot easier. You just have a lot more information. At the same time, there's a lot more information to go through, but I'd still like these more than the preseason ones. They're a little easier.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree. Like I say, it takes a lot of time to get through all the results, but at the same time, you know exactly what weights guys are at. Some of them are starting to move down, but at least you have that information. You have records, you have some quality wins this year, stuff like that to go off of.
The biggest thing to note here for you guys that are listening to this or, have looked at the rankings so far here today or in the past, that a couple different things that IAwrestle does different than other rankers around the nation and the state is we do not rank freshmen in our first set preseason rankings. And second, if there's any kind of injuries that we know of, we know they're going to be missing significant time. If they haven't wrestled this first semester or this first part of the season, we leave them out of the rankings until they actually start competing, because we like to do it as if the state tournament happens tomorrow, this is how we see it happening, because those guys just aren't in the lineup right now. Eric, we'll start with you. Is there a lot of 1A kids that aren't in your rankings before because of this?
Because of injuries you're talking, or?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, I have one. I can't remember what weight he's at, but it was Nick Rounds of Missouri Valley. I couldn't find any matches for him yet. I had him at number 2 in the preseason rankings. I think he's probably one of the only ones I can really remember that I didn't put in because they were injured or some other reason they weren't in.
Lars, how about you in 2A?
2A's been hit pretty hard, actually. I'm missing quite a few guys. Just at 160, I had to drop Joe Kelly from West Liberty, Josh Stroman from Algona out. I've got Ethan Late missing at heavyweight, Gable Sapirta, lots of really good kids in 2A that are missing a lot of time right now. So kind of another tough thing to rank.
Is it because they aren't wrestling, or is it because maybe they just haven't been submitted to tracks? I know we're having some of those issues as well.
I know, for a fact, those 4 guys that, I just mentioned are definitely injured, going to miss quite a bit of time. There might be some kids that have missed a little bit of time. I still include them if it's not going to be, long stretches, anything like that. But I know that those 4 are going to miss, a good portion of the season, if not the whole season.
Yeah, I don't know for sure what's keeping him out. I looked at all the results, and he was the only one that didn't have them, I believe. So I don't think it was just Missouri Valley's team that wasn't in there. So I'll have to look at that, keep an eye on it.
So with this blab here tonight, the Potentially Dangerous podcast, we're out of our 3A guy that does our rankings. He had some family stuff to take care of, so he's not going to be on here. So Ross and I are going to be kind of talking a little bit about that later in the podcast. But first, let's just start with 1A rankings and go up and down these weight classes, Eric. Starting at 106, you got Gable Fox at number 1. What else about this weight class? Who's been kind of the biggest movers and shakers at 106?
Well, he's the only returning state place winner. I got a couple freshmen in there, and Wilson and Henderson from Alburnett, North Lynn. A couple of them other guys are qualifiers, and then some of them are guys that beat qualifiers. And then I have Donnie Schmidt, number 2 of Wapsie Valley. He didn't qualify for state last year, but he was in that loaded bracket with Gable Fox, Chance Starsden from Riceville, and Will Portis from Rockford. So he very well could have been state place winner or 1 and 2. I mean, he at least a qualifier in another district. So that's kind of how I got that one done.
Thanks for joining us, Ross. We're in a conversation here. We're happy Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays, folks.
All right, so back to 1A here, 106 action. Anything else that jumps out of you for this weight class, Eric?
Just the bottom half's still pretty wide open. I'm just trying to figure out who some of these maybe underclassmen are who haven't had a whole lot of time to showcase how good they are yet. There could still be a lot of turnover in the bottom half, but I think I got 10 pretty good guys in there that'll have a say come state time.
113, you've got a junior ranked number 1, Brock Henderson from North Lynn. Where does the rest of this weight class shake out for you?
You got 4 or 5 real good guys up top there. Well, I guess one more thing at 106. There is talk of maybe Will Portis going down to 106, so he would definitely probably move his way right to the top at 106. Same thing with the bottom half here. There's pretty decent guys who've done some good stuff so far. Just a couple qualifiers in there, so pretty decent weight class, especially top half of it.
Now 113 you're talking?
Yeah, 113, yep.
Okay. And I haven't had a chance to kind of compare the first set to this set. They just seem to change so much and can't put a whole lot of stock in it. So, is there one guy at this weight class that just you never didn't think that would be on it that was this set?
Not really. I think all but 2 or 3 are returning qualifiers, so
okay,
pretty easy on that one.
And moving on to 120, Bryce West. That's a name that a lot of people know. It's a kind of a, when you think of 2A wrestling, you think of Bryce West right now. But some other names that stick out to me here. I-35 ranked number 8, Braden Egley. Tell me a little bit about him, and could he, get himself a little bit higher on the award stand, you think, this year, or we just haven't seen enough from him yet?
Yeah, he might be able to. This is another weight where you got your top 5, 6 are pretty tough. Cole Allison, he has some big wins this year. Ben Moyer's good. Them top 6 guys are good. Yeah, he could have a say in that. I don't think he qualified for state last year. He was a district qualifier. New guy of the weight is Nate Vento of Van Meter. He had some quality wins. I decided to throw him in there. I guess what I told you guys, but the other people don't know. Some of my 9, 10 guys I have, it was kind of put up or maybe shut up, get out of the rankings. I don't know. There was a couple guys who didn't have maybe some great wins. So I just said, I'll just throw some of these other guys in here, give them some recognition. But it's not like I was just throwing them in there. They're definitely deserving to be ranking. So
126, Alex Thompson. I think he's the highlight of almost the whole state wrestling. 3A, 2A, 1A. He's got all the buzz. He's only a sophomore from Underwood, but right behind him is Drew West, a junior. He's got an extra year under his belt. Have these guys? Will these guys see each other leading up to the state wrestling tournament anywhere?
I don't believe those two do. This is just pure speculation on my part, but I wouldn't be surprised to see those two split up. Maybe one of them bump up to 132. But no, I don't believe they meet up before state.
Now, if they move up to, one of them moves up to 32, I mean, do they still have that number, would they have the number one ranking? Let's just say Drew goes up to 132. I mean, would he be ranked number one over Needham from West Marshall?
Yeah, I'd say he'd probably have to be the guy to be at that weight. I mean, you got a couple top 5, 6 pretty tough there, but yeah, I'd still probably put him number one.
Okay. Anybody else? I mean, Alex Thompson, I think he's a huge favorite, obviously, but is there anybody else here that, could possibly smell an upset? I mean, I think anybody in the state in high school wrestling poses that threat, but I guess a name that stuck out to you this set of rankings.
Yeah, I have Jake Wolf. I didn't want to put him in at 10, but I didn't really know where else to put him. He's had a pretty good season so far. Colin Schrader from Wapsie Valley, he's a real strong sophomore, so he'll be real tough at this weight class. And I mean, all these guys are tough here. This was one of the tougher weight classes. I had about 14 kids at this weight I wanted to rank, but only could put 10 in there. So yeah, there's some good kids here.
So 132, I mean, what do those guys do if one of these guys jump up? I mean, do you think there's some guys at 132 that could possibly bump down to 26 to make a run at that, or does that change anything for the guys at 132?
Yeah, I guess I don't know where any of their weight are as far as are going down, but even 138 isn't all that, I guess, top heavy really. So I don't know. They could bump up too as well. I mean, this is all just speculation at this point. You don't know where they're going to end up. Some people might not be down to weight yet, but yeah, I think 26 is tough, and then 32, 38 are a little bit thinner. They're still pretty tough though.
So moving on, so 38, you're saying, what do you say about 38?
You have Nick Williams. He's a state champ and a state place winner. Jacob Krakow, he's pretty decent from Iowa Valley, and then Tucker Franklin, Bryce Ackerman. And then once you start getting down a little farther, I got some new guys in the rankings there, and I even have a freshman in at 10 from Missouri Valley. So this is another one where your top 3, 4, 5 are pretty solid, and then after that, it's pretty wide open.
Let's move on to 145. Possible 4-time state champion here, Carter Happel. I got to imagine a lot of guys have moved away from this weight, whereas there's some guys that have moved into this to try to test him. Trey Brisker, Johnson, and Dylan even. What are your thoughts on 145?
Yeah, I think this is tougher than 138. So I once again, I wouldn't be shocked to see some people drop down to 38. Brisker, he's just a sophomore, but he's a state runner-up last year. Trent Johnson, he's real tough. Dylan Shuck with the C. Got to put the C in there. He called me out on that today. He's a real good junior. And Salko and Mulford, they both qualified. James Kime, he's been having a great year. Mueller, Central Springs, another real tough guy there. And then 2 guys that didn't qualify last year, but Caleb Grunderson and Tanner Haberlin, they're both pretty tough. So actually, I'd say this weight is top to bottom's a little definitely is probably better than 38. So I wouldn't be shocked to see somebody drop down there.
Would you say it's the toughest in the state?
No.
Or and 1A anyways?
I don't think so. I don't know. I guess I haven't really looked at what's the toughest. I mean, 52, that's decent. Yeah, I don't know. It's actually fairly even, I would say. Usually there's one of the toughest weight classes. I mean, if you're going just strictly on toughest to win, it's got to be 45 with Carter Happel in there, but
Well, moving on to 52 and 60. Where who's who do you see that moved into your rankings here at these two weight classes?
Well, at 52, I have a new guy in there at 10. It's Gabe Pauley of AHST. He's just a freshman. I got to watch him wrestle quite a bit when he was younger. He's going to be a real tough freshman in there. I think one of these weights I dropped the Sigourney kid. He was definitely rankable, but he didn't have a ton of quality wins. So like this was another weight where I just said, hey, this guy's been having a pretty good year. I'll throw him in there and see if he can stick. Or
crazy thing to see here. 52 is two-time runner-up Greenwald all the way down at 7.
Yeah,
he always had some struggles this year, but just kind of weird seeing a two-time runner-up drop that far.
Yeah, I have a real hard time ranking guys real high when they jump up a bunch of weight. So I guess we'll kind of see what he can do here. I got to watch him once this year, and I mean he's good. There's no doubt about it. But this weight, I mean, them top 3, 4, 5 guys are real tough. And Dalton Nelson, he's tough too. So
how many weight classes is he jumping up?
I believe he wrestled 26 at state last year.
I think so.
Holy cow!
Yeah.
So yeah, this is definitely 26 to 52. That's a massive jump.
I mean, it's happened before. I mean, kids have done well up a bunch of weight like that, but I like to see it first.
I think when he was a freshman, they were struggling to get him all the way to a full 106.
Yeah.
He just keeps jumping.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So 160. Another Alburnett. Alburnet's got. I see that name quite a bit in your rankings. Number 1 ranked team. Got 7 ranked wrestlers, and you've got him number 1, Connor at 52. Who can push him?
52 Shalister. You talk about Steve Rice. Which weight you want to talk about?
Sorry, Ross, your audio got a little out of control there a little bit. Okay. So Alburnett, Bryce Paul at 160, back-to-back guys ranked at number 1. You got to see them a little bit this weekend, correct?
Yes. Sure.
And what? I mean, guess what? What is having 2 guys ranked number 1 doesn't happen very often for teams in 1A. I feel to go back to back in a lineup. I mean, were they just the backbone of that team this weekend at Battle of Waterloo?
Yeah, they were pretty tough. I know actually Bryce Paul got beat on it. He got pinned by Carter Roweeder of Iowa City West. I didn't catch that match, but that was a little surprising result to me. Actually, you say back-to-back guys here. You got 2 straight Lisbon guys and 2 straight Alburnett guys. So, yeah, it doesn't happen very often. But, well, then even if the West boys, you could have them in there too. So, yeah, this weight is Josh Hopkins. He did some good things last year from East Mills. Sal Arzani, he had a real good freestyle Greco season this year. You got another Sibley Ochin guy in there. Sailor, he's tough. Paulson, Arbogast, Entrikin, they were all at the same district and sectional last year, so left one of them at home. And then Deer King from Southeast Warren, he's just a sophomore. So, yeah, there's 8 real tough guys at this weight. I think Bryce Paul is definitely your top guy until he's beaten by any of these other guys, but pretty solid weight class there.
72, anybody that sticks out to you? Another Alburnett kid in there, number 4, Tanner Sloan.
Yeah, he's another guy where I kind of want to see him at this weight a little bit. He wrestled 138 last year, and he's all the way up to 170. I've seen him. He looks like a 170-pounder, but he's been having a pretty good year so far. But we'll see how he does against some of these better guys. I watched Schween from Belle Plaine. I saw him pin Paulson earlier this year. Logan Schumacher, he's just a sophomore. He was real tough last year at state. You got 7 returning state place winners here, I believe. And then we have a freshman from Central Springs, another AHST guy who's having a pretty good year that I put in there at 10.
Moving on to 182, I see my my hometown here, finally in your rankings. Ogden just has we're struggling a little bit, but we got a boy named Austin Lentz, number 2 senior. I think he didn't have the season he wanted to last year, but based off your rankings, and what you've been seeing so far, I mean, does he have a shot to get Ogden another guy back at the finals?
Yeah, I think he does, or I think he has a real good shot at it. This weight's, you got good guys here, but this is also really wide open. You have Cruz Vera in there. He placed 6th last year at state. Daniel Bishop, real tough junior there at a hint, and I have him number 1. And then you have Walker even there from Don Bosco. He's beat some really highly ranked 3A guys. He has some, I wouldn't say bad losses, but losses against guys you expect him to beat. So I could see this weight class looking totally different the next set of rankings here. We get some more results in there.
Moving on to 95, Logan Magnolia. Then you got another guy from Ogden ranked there. But Logan Magnolia seems like they always got that one guy that can come home with the state title. And it just is not a name that I'm familiar with. Tell me a little bit about Drake Johnson coming in at number 2 for Logan Magnolia.
Yeah, there's some good kids at this weight class, but there's just not a whole lot of returning qualifiers. I know like Slade Cifuentes, he probably should have been at state last year, but he was in a real tough district sectional. Ty Riley, same thing with him, but he's having a really good year so far. He actually has a pin over Nick Ross this year. That's what got him so high up there. Massengale, he's a returning state place winner, but he got pinned by Walker Even. So yeah, Logan Magnolia, I kind of want to give him a little bit more respect, but when I was looking through their results, and none of them have a lot of quality wins. It's not they don't have losses. They haven't wrestled a whole lot of quality competition yet, so it's kind of tough to know where they're at. They haven't had many good measuring sticks. So
yeah, a little shout out too to Landers Kaboshek at the top there. I don't know if everybody saw it, but he knocked off Schiedenhelm from Denver, who was previously number 1 in 2A last week or 2 weeks ago. So he's a real tough kid. Been sliding up the rankings. He's going to be one to watch out for.
Yeah, it was definitely him and then everybody else so far. So we'll see if anybody can knock him off at that weight this year.
And what you got cooking at 220 and 285, Eric, as we wrap up the 1A rankings here with Eric Schares, our 1A ranker.
Yeah, 220, another weight where you don't have a ton. I only see maybe 1 or 2 returning state place winners in there. So a lot of new guys in there that were maybe just state qualifiers last year. I got a sophomore in there, Chaz Clark from Pleasantville. He's having a decent year so far. But yeah, this is another weight that could look totally different next set of rankings here.
About 285, is it similar? Seems like the heavier we get, it seems like there's a lot more parity. Is that? I don't feel like that's been the case in 1A every year. Is it just this year? You just feel like there's lots of kids that can win these weight classes, or just too early to tell for you?
Yeah, it's just, this is the first year me doing the preseason rankings, so I don't know if it's just this year or just because I'm doing preseason rankings, but it seemed like a lot of these upper weights cleared out. So, and it's funny you say that because then you get to heavyweight, and I think heavyweight's pretty solid here. These top 10 guys are pretty tough. You got Brinkman. He's up at 285 from Regina. I have him number 1. He beat Warden this year. Holsheiser, he's state place winner. Butcher, Kyler Schott, he's real tough junior. And then Brian Sadler, he was in with, I think, Schott last year at district. So he didn't qualify for state, but he was definitely one of the top 16 in the state. So this weight's pretty tough. This was another one where I had about 14 guys, and I tried to figure out who my top 10 was going to be, and it wasn't all that easy.
Well, 1A has come out in full force today. This has got one of our most viewed posts today for rankings, and I'm not for sure why. There's just a whole lot of 1A schools out there, but as far as the rankings go, team wise, Eric's got Alburnett number 1, Lisbon number 2, Sibley at 3rd, Bosco 4th, Highland Riverside 5th, Southeast Warren at 6th, West Marshall at 7th, Wapsie Valley at 8th, North Lynn at 9th, and South Central Calhoun at 10th. Southeast Warren, did they win the dual state championship and the individual state championship last year?
They got second at duels, and I think they were top 3. I can't remember individual.
I knew that they were in the finals. I remember them having a trophy. I just couldn't remember what they did last year. So, I mean, sitting at second in duels, where do you have them compared to your tournament to dual rankings? I don't know if you've got it up handy or not, but
It's Warren, or who are you talking about?
Southeast Warren, yeah.
Oh, I don't have them up in my dual rankings. I don't believe.
Okay.
It's-
I've had a lot of questions about, you know, why the tournament to dual rankings differ so much, and maybe it's just because people aren't just familiar with how tournaments are ran or how the points are distributed. So, I mean, could you maybe help us out a little bit with that, Eric, as far as how the points go?
Well, I think look no further than place in the individual rankings there. You have Highland Riverside. They got 2 guys ranked, both West boys. They're not very strong at all, and duels chance and be.
Ross, you need to turn your audio down. You're all sorts of messed up. Jason Bryant's just messing with us. So when I'll get to you, Ross, when we get to 3A. So sorry about that. Anything else you got for 1A, Eric?
Not really. I think this is kind of Alburnett's to lose as far as individual state goes. Lisbon's going to give them a go, and then Sibley, they didn't have the greatest showing down at state last year. They're definitely capable, but still a lot to be proven there. So, yeah, could be interesting. Should be interesting.
Since Ross kind of interrupted us here with his audio, could you tell us a little again how the tournament scoring works? Why we have tournament kids or teams that are ranked in our tournament rankings and not our dual rankings for the people that just are not familiar?
Well, like I said, you got Highland Riverside 5th in the individual rankings, and that is all because of 2 guys. They got the West boys, and one's ranked number 1, one's ranked number 2, and those are about as guaranteed a points as you can get down at state with those 2, barring an injury. They're going to be first, second, or third. But individual, it takes 10, 12 other guys to be up there. In 1A, a lot of it's just having a full lineup and having 500, average guys at every weight, and then you got some studs. So it's definitely 2 different rankings, that's for sure.
All right, Lars, let's move on to 2A rankings. Creston still at that number 1 slot in the tournament rankings, starting at 106, a name that jumps off the board that lots of people ask questions. Oh, why is he not in the rankings? And again, same thing with the 1A to 2A. We do not rank freshmen in the preseason rankings. So that man from Alabia, Aiden Reeves, freshman. A lot of people talking about this young man. Can you talk a little bit about him and maybe some other freshmen that jumped up in this ranking? Eric Fott from Clear Lake.
Yeah, I mean, Reeves was a no-brainer. He was an easy guy to put at 1. Could have probably been there preseason, but like you say, we don't rank freshmen right away, so he just had to kind of wait and buy his time. He's been sliding around. He's going up to 13 when he needs to, wherever he can to get good matches. And this freshman class is loaded there. I have, I think, 6 freshmen in at 106. Cleveland and Anderlick have been battling it out up there in Northeast Iowa. Cleveland lost to Anderlick in the duel last week, but they both got some great wins. Loonsman's a kid to keep an eye on. I coached against this kid in junior high, and he's just rock solid, really tall, lanky, great on top. Caleb Olenczak is another name. Kind of been keeping my eye on him for a long time. So he's having a good year so far. His only losses have been out of state. And then there's just a couple of returners there with Kesterson and Edie and Ruffridge holding strong up there towards the top. So.
Another name that's going to be there, I think, all year unless something happens. At 113 will be Justin Portillo, Clarion Goldfield, another Night of Conflict wrestler. 113, a name, Noah Fye there. That sticks out to me. But who else at this weight class, jumped in here that wasn't in your first set?
Yeah, so we had a few jump in. A couple freshmen, Fusely and Doolittle. Doolittle's definitely one to really, really watch out for guys that haven't seen him. His only loss so far is to Portillo. He's got a couple really good 3A wins already. He beat Gage Perrion. He's beat Max Tracy. He beat returning state champion Michael Millage in the offseason. So he's definitely one to keep an eye out for. Phi is a little bit of a tough one. He's been wrestling mostly 20 and 26, but I know he's trying to drop down to 13, and from what I've been told, he's maybe already made the weight, even if he hasn't wrestled there. And then Josh Keller doesn't maybe get the love of some of the other guys, but he is a state runner-up. Did knock off Phi in the semis last year, so he's definitely right there at the top with those guys.
And this, with the districts, have you had at the sectionals, have you had a chance to look at, are any of these guys going to be meeting up, prior to the postseason and possibly at maybe a sectional?
I haven't really had a real big chance to look into it. I think, if I'm not mistaken, maybe like Fritz and Fusely, some of those guys might meet up beforehand. There's a few of them kind of in that area there with Denver and Center Point, South Tama, some of them. So I would imagine some will see each other before the postseason.
And moving on to 120, another brother, Josh Portillo, makes his way to 120. And Ross, you're killing me. Ross, you just need to stay off. You got to dial up, or you working on that old server that needs updated, or what? 120. Okay, moving on to 120. Josh Portillo, the brother, the one that it seems like these guys always get mixed up. Justin Portillo, Josh Portillo, back-to-back guys. But sitting at number 2 from Cresco, Michael, what are your thoughts on this weight class towards the top?
1 through 10, this is just loaded. I know Eric talked about some weights. To me, I could have easily ranked 15 guys at this weight. And for my money, this is definitely the toughest weight in 2A, and I think this is one of the best weights in the whole state, regardless of class. Riker Sims is a name. I don't know how to keep them 3, but those top 3, I think you throw in a hat, and any given day anybody comes out. Sims is as good as anybody. He's got wins over Jacob Allison, win over Gross from Apple Valley already this year. I mean, those 3 are as good as anybody. And then, Connor Cleveland's a state runner-up. You got Takia. You got Duncan McCain. Nick Melling haven't lost yet this year. Riley Wright, the freshman, comes in at 9 from Denver. He's already got a win over Noah Fye. This is just a loaded weight. Jacob Fensky is a really good wrestler at 10.
Moving on to 126. This is another, I think, loaded weight class towards the top. I mean, is this weight class going to shake out? In 1A, we see so many kids that are thinking, we had with Thompson and West possibly moving around from weight class. I mean, this is another weight class, I think, with Rathbun and Postlock. Do you think they will move away from this 126 weight class?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that too many of these guys will move around just based on team needs as well. Union's got Hellman down a weight. Sergeant Bluff's got Sims down a weight. I think Steffen's probably a little bit more of a 20-pounder, but from what I understand, Millage's plan at this point is to stay at 20. So Steffen's probably stuck here at 26. So I don't think you'll see too much movement here. Another name to keep an eye on here, one of the big movers for me was Bryant Woodford from Central DeWitt. kid I've kind of kept an eye on for a couple years, but maybe hasn't quite, panned out the way he'd like. He's 18-0 so far. I show him this year. I believe it's 18. He's undefeated. He's won a few tournaments already, and he's really been moving up the rankings.
Oh, a senior as well. So, I mean, and there's only one senior, which would be Brock at this weight class. So, I always like to, I always cheer for the senior, their last season, climbing that board, give it one last shot. So, it'd be interesting to see how 126, arguably, I think, is one of the toughest weight classes in the state with all classes every single year and year out. So, moving on to 132, a name that I'm familiar with would be Shay from Swafford from Mediapolis. Everson at number 1. Who else? Who's moved into this weight class here? I see you got a freshman ranked at number 8.
Yeah, Cale Kruger from Denver. His dad's actually the coach up there. A real tough kid. So he slotted in this week. Keaton Gertz is a name that just keeps coming up everywhere you look for New Hampton. New Hampton's been a squad on the rise. And Gertz is, to me, leading the charge. Everybody knows Phi. A lot of people know Cleveland. But Gertz is right there with any of them. His only loss was 6-4 to defending champ Leisure. Other than that, he's got some real good wins over, Cobb and Momsen and Davis. He's got some really quality wins already, and New Hampton's been wrestling a really tough schedule. So I think Gertz has got a real good chance of being at the top of podium here too. Lenhart's missed a little bit of time, but he's a 2-time place winner. So when he's back in the lineup, he's going to be right there in the mix. Rosenboom and Gutneck haven't lost yet, so hopefully they keep getting some better competition. They'll keep sliding up as well.
138, Ryan Leisure, number 1 ranked wrestler from Clear Lake. Some other names here that I'm familiar with. I just don't dabble a whole lot into 2A, but Swafford for Mediapolis, a sophomore, in a weight class of 138. Typically, he's going to have some upperclassmen. Is he another Mediapolis boy that is going to make some noise in the state wrestling tournament? Yeah,
for sure. I mean, everybody who's ever watched Mediapolis knows the Swafford name. They've all been good. They're all in the mix. Brennan's the same deal. He just kind of keeps getting better. But that top 5 is really, really solid. Top 6 really with Barkema. Abbas, I was kind of waiting to see how he did moving up to 2A, and he's more than held his own. Got some good wins so far already. And, you talk about upperclassmen there, and it's kind of funny because we have 2 freshmen ranked at 138 here. Just kind of odd to see, but both Krieger and Rowland are undefeated so far this year, and both have a couple of really nice wins. And again, this was a weight where there's a couple kids sitting there on the outside that easily could have been ranked, but I wanted to give some props to those 2 freshmen there as well.
Yeah, undefeated, freshman at 138, I think is always impressive. So how you find these kids is beyond me, and I won't get into your trade secrets for high school rankings, but moving on to 45, no freshmen in the rankings here. This seems to be just kind of dominated by seniors and juniors.
Yeah, this is all upperclassmen. There's a couple of sophomores that were considered, but these senior and junior classes here are really tough. Buster and Lushin are names most people are familiar with, have been around, been really good the last few years. Buster got 3rd last year. Trey Pekanowski is one that's really been moving up this year. He's already beat, I believe, 5 or 6 ranked guys. So he's been moving up. Nick Highland's undefeated for Vinton. Xavier Miller's been a guy who's just been really hovering around that top 10 for a couple of years now, but just hasn't been able to break on through and get to state and do anything. So nice to get Xavier in there. He's been having a nice year so far.
How about Max at 8? I feel like that's a name that I've seen quite often as well as far as results go. He's a senior. Is he just waiting for a breakout win at 145?
Yeah, Forsyth's a good kid. I think he was ranked most of the year last year. He's always kind of been around. Really doesn't have a big signature win yet this year, and he does have a few losses. He's one of the ones that Pekanowski's already knocked off this year, and I think he's got 4 losses already. So hard to slot him too much higher, but he's a solid top 10 kid.
Moving on to 152, Brock Jennings, Osage. Is that the coach's boy?
It is. It's the second one. Brady's at Iowa State now, and now we got Brock.
Okay. Any other stories that needs to be talked about at 152?
Yeah, I think one name that really moved up is Luke Hageman from Dyersville, Beckman Catholic. He always had a really, really good career growing up. He was a really good AAU wrestler. Last year, he didn't quite have the year he wanted. He was kind of up and down, but he's really grown, and he's a tall kid, and he's really grown into 52, and he's putting together a really nice year already.
So 160, Tristan Johnson, Iowa recruit, Iowa verbal. And then the Matt Malcolm, also Iowa boy, going to Iowa. Anybody else at this weight class? Are these guys going to, Osage and Glenwood, are they going to see each other before the state tournament?
I don't think so. They're pretty far away. I don't believe they'll see each other anywhere. But yeah, 2 really good kids, obviously, big-time D1 recruits. Zach Johnston is a name to keep an eye on. He's a 2-time state runner-up, just hasn't quite been able to get to the top of the podium. So I think he'll be right there with those guys. Jake Jewell's a name I think most people are pretty familiar with. He's been really good for a few years. But he actually lost to Isaac Judge. So Judge is undefeated right now and keeps moving up the rankings as well as only a sophomore. And this was without, like I say, in the intro there, we lost a couple kids that were ranked high, Joe Kelly and Josh Stroman both getting injured. So, this is already a tough weight, but with those guys in there, it just gets better. 170,
Chase Schultz, this from Creston, Anthony Sherry, 2 tough guys at this weight class as well. I thought we were going to see that matchup last Tuesday down at Creston, but it didn't happen. What's going on there as far as those guys not wrestling each other last week?
Yeah, that was the day that Schultz got cleared, was the day of that duel. So I know he was still getting in shape, trying to get down to weight. From what I understood, I didn't even know if he'd wrestled that night, but they did throw him out there at 182 and got a win. And then he went down to the Kansas City Stampede and had a nice weekend. So he's just kind of getting back into the flow of things. But I think this 1-2 punch is about as good as any in 2A. And Schultz and Sherry are actually in the same district. So
wow,
bad for anybody else sitting there. But these guys are going to battle all the way through the postseason.
Wow, yeah. If you're in that district, you should probably move.
Yeah. And then like Mason Carpenter was a big mover. Wasn't ranked preseason, but comes in at number 7. Has been putting a nice year together so far for Clarion, which just helps their team.
What was that, Eric?
I said it sets up that state final and be in the same district.
That's true. That's one positive that you could get from it. You're not going to see him in the quarters, and that happens so much at the state wrestling tournament. We get to talking about, should the state wrestling tournament be seeded? Same thing with international wrestling and kill seeding. The Wrestling Nomad went on a tangent about that here, I think, a couple of weeks ago. But I think at the high school level, I think that is what makes the state wrestling tournament one of the most popular ones around the nation. I know that they do it at other state wrestling tournaments, but Iowa has gotten its, you look at the Des Moines Register that, Thursday morning for the matchups to watch, or you come to IAwrestle now and, the matchups that you need to watch first round, and that gets people their butts in the seats from day one instead of just coming to the state finals. So I love seeing it. I didn't like it when I was competing, obviously, but as far as fans and media go, I love it. So moving on in this 2A rankings, Lars Underbakke is our 2A rankings master, the guy behind all these stats. So moving on to 182. I'm not familiar with with this weight class, besides maybe the last name Luke, with Luke Erickson from Indianapolis?
Yeah, Erickson from Indianapolis again, another family name down there. Cole Erickson is at Iowa now as a freshman. Tough kid. He's got a couple losses this year, so he's not quite as high as he could be. But really, this is a real solid weight. Nick Baumler is a really, really good wrestler that maybe doesn't get all the accolades of everybody else, but really, really solid kid. Got second last year, placed as a sophomore, and just committed to Upper Iowa, I believe. So he's going to be a real good one. J.J. Clark, Vic Malloy, got third and fourth last year, so they're going to keep battling all year long. Some really, really good kids here. Danny Summerlot's undefeated. So this is a pretty tough weight. Really like a lot of these guys.
Moving on, 185. Crescent's got another guy here ranked number 1. And, the Bryce at second in your rankings. This one, there's a sophomore in your rankings at 195. You talk a little bit about Esmol from West Liberty.
Yeah, this is a really, really good weight as well at the top. Some of those bottom ones were a little bit harder to rank. Really, those top 3 or 4 were kind of hard. Sheaton Hell came in number 1. He's actually already lost twice in state this year, which is definitely a surprise to most people, but bumped him down a couple notches. And Bryce Esmoil is a name that a lot of people are familiar with that watch kids wrestling growing up, stuff like that. I believe he was a 6-time AAU state champ, placed last year as a freshman at 195. He's undefeated right now. He's already beat Peter Schmidt, who's ranked, beat Chalice, who's ranked high in 1A. Really good freestyle and Greco wrestler as well. So he's going to be right in the mix with everybody. Poppins is Appleton Parkersburg's not a school that gets a lot of love for wrestling, but Poppins is having a really good year, real tough kid. So
that's crazy that it hasn't. When you think about the history of football, that they just couldn't produce a wrestling team. Maybe are people just I don't know a whole lot about the wrestling program there. Are they just so focused on football that the wrestling coaches can't get it in the football coach's head that, hey, you need to go on for wrestling, or what's going on there? Why? Yeah, you would think that would work.
Yeah, a lot of times it translates, but yeah, I just don't know that. I don't know if they don't have the numbers or what the deal is, but they've just never been a big wrestling power. Every once in a while they'll have a guy or two, but it's just never been a wrestling school, I guess.
Every year they have their studs in there, but it's just more or less filling out the whole lineup. But they always have a couple tough guys in there.
Moving on to 120, who we got here? Davenport Assumption coming in with a junior at number 4. There's a sophomore, number 7. Who else here that you'd like at 220, Lars?
Yeah, really good weight. Actually, just a little bit ago, 1 versus 2 already happened tonight in a dual meet, and number 2 Dinsdale beat number 1 Paulson in sudden victory, 3-1. So there'll definitely be a little bit of movement there at the top in the next set of rankings. It's really tough ranking those two, and really Caden Hewlett was in that mix as well. Broderson's a really good kid. He's always been in the mix. He placed last year. Was up in Mount Vernon and watched him and number 6 Dua go at it in the finals. Dua got a lead, and then Broderson ended up getting the fall. Caleb Rings, a real solid kid from Osage. Been waiting for him to take that next jump. He's kind of just been hanging in there in that 5 to 10 range. He's got a couple losses. He lost to Jordan Baumler, which was a big mover this week. Little brother of Nick at 82. Sat behind a couple of really, really good kids in North Fayette last year as a freshman. Finally getting his chance right now, and his only loss is to Dua so far, and he's got some really quality wins already.
Moving on to 285, I've got to imagine that Carter Isley. How do you guys pronounce? How's that pronounced? I've heard it so many different ways.
Yeah, I've heard it a lot of different ways. I think it is.
I think it's Eiley, but I mean, maybe correct me. I guess
catch up thing. It's either way, it's fine.
Okay, so Albia, I think they benefited a lot from getting some guys from that freshman class. They're number 2, but I would say they got the number 1 ranked wrestler at 106, number 1 ranked wrestler at heavyweight, and this guy's kind of just been the backbone of this program for, I would say, the last 4 years. This is his senior year. He's got to be the leader.
Oh yeah, I mean Carter's a clear number 1. This is a really, really good weight, but there's no question who the number 1 guy is here. He's committed to UNI, and I think he's going to be just a great, great heavyweight for Coach Schwab up there. And Albia actually only has 4 guys in the rankings, but all 4 are in the top 2. So they're number 2 at 45, number 2 at 52, and then have their bookends. They're both number 1. See a couple young guys here, which isn't real common at heavyweight. Spencer Chineri, coming in as a freshman, put him in at number 10. Took Hofstetter out from Grinnell, who hasn't necessarily done anything wrong. He's only got 1 loss, real good kid, but Trineri's, I think, earned the right to be in there. He's a AAU place winner, really tough freshman. And then Cooper Lawson is a name that's been familiar to everybody around Iowa over the years. Him and Dinsdale were kind of trading some time at 220 and heavyweight last year, but I guess they're settled in now at Lawson at heavyweight. He's already got a win over Trineri, got a win over Heath. Cooper's a really, really good kid as only a sophomore. He's going to be a name to watch over the next few years. And then another one, I guess, would be Tristan Wirfs from Mount Vernon. If some of you haven't seen this guy in person, he is an absolute beast. Standing next to him at the Mount Vernon tournament, I think he's got to be 6'7", 6'8". And I don't know how he makes 285. He is just a monster of a man. Committed to Iowa for football. I don't think he even knows how strong and athletic he is yet. He was just throwing guys around up there, but actually has 2 losses already this year, to number 1, 1A Brinkman, and to Cavanis, who's number 2. So the Wirfs is as big and athletic as they come, so he'll still have a say in this weight as well.
So there's an example of why Appleton Parkersburg could have a good wrestling team. I mean, that guy, I guarantee that kid is out for football and just decided to wrestle, and look at him. He's a number 5 ranked wrestler in 2A. So, I mean, it just proves its point time in and time out. If you're out for football and you're, want to be a successful football player, go out for wrestling. More than likely, it's going to go hand in hand if you, put the time in like you do for your football. So let's just run down team rankings, and you can stop me if there's somebody that made a big push here. But starting at number 1, Creston, I believe they were ranked first preseason. Number 2, Albia, like Lars said, they've got only 4 guys ranked, but they're ranked in the number 1, number 2 slot. Number 3, Clarion Goldfield. Number 4, New Hampton. Number 5, Crestwood. Number 6, Minneapolis. Number 7, Glenwood. Number 8, Osage. And number 9, Sergeant Bluff, Lutton. And number 10, ADM. So is there anybody there that benefited from getting these freshmen into the rankings other than Albia?
Yeah, New Hampton made a big jump. I think they were tied for 10th in the preseason. Had 5 guys ranked, but Cleveland came in as a freshman, and all their guys just keep winning and winning. They finished, I believe, 2nd at the Battle of Waterloo. So they have a couple extra kids in there as well, and guys keep moving up. So they jumped all the way from 10th to 4th. So big jump for New Hampton. The other big mover, probably don't want to be talked about, kind of went in the wrong direction, but Assumption slid from 5th, actually all the way out of the top 10. They were just outside, but they slid down at a few weights because of freshmen coming in. They had 2 state qualifiers who were ranked in the preseason who actually quit wrestling during the first week. And my understanding is they're done. They're not coming back. So that obviously took a really, really big hit on that team. One of them was at 170. They do have a freshman in there at 170 now that's going to be one to watch, Julian Broderson. He's a guy that could make his way into the rankings and some other kids. So, I think Assumption could climb back into the top 10, but right now they're on the outside looking in.
Props to you, Lars. That was great knowledge for 2A. Give him a follow at Lars IAwrestle. Of course, Eric Schares, our 1A infield power. He hasn't switched his name. He's going to just live in that baseball. I'm assuming that's baseball related infield power.
Of course.
All right, I figured. So let's move on to 3A. Obviously, our ranking guy is not here. He is tending to his girlfriend, significant other. So moving on to 3A. This is luckily he's the one that's gone because I know a little bit about 3A with covering it for KCWI. I'm more of a college guy, but since I got to cover the Metro and coach obviously at Johnston, I can dab a little bit into this, but you guys feel free to jump in anytime. But when I look at these 3A rankings, Waukee just sticks out to me, and his rankings jumping out. I mean, not even in the preseason rankings, clear up to 4th. Obviously a big jumper that is from Cade DeVos, Waukee, coming in at 13. And, we'll start at 106 here. So what Waukee has kind of in their hands here that you aren't familiar, they have two guys that could be, ranked number 1 at 106 more than likely. Kyle Biscaglia, these two have both wrestled off. They do 2 best of 3s. Cade won the first time, and then here the last time it went Cade won the first one, and then Kyle did. And then in the third match, Cade got a takedown with like 15 seconds left, and it got waved off. So Kyle ended up winning the wrestle off. So he took back 106. So this wrestle off is definitely far from over at 106 for Waukee. They will trade kind of back and forth throughout the year. So it'll be interesting to see because everyone is really kind of they want to move away from Brody Teskey, who's just got a lock hold on 113. But 106, Drew Bennett, got to watch him wrestle at Fort Dodge against Southeast Polk guy. They don't have a strong 106 pounder, but he's a real strong sophomore at this weight class. Him or Paxton at number 3, I think could have a shot at upsetting Biscaglia or DeVos, and Oldham as well from Valley. He's at number 5 in Kirk's ranking. Saw him wrestle at Valley a couple weeks ago, and he's just a freshman, so he's kind of getting his feet a little bit wet. We don't know a whole lot about him, but he's got a good history to him. So a lot of freshmen that are just getting into these rankings that Kirk wanted to rank. 106 is so hard, but in 3A, I think Biscaglia or Cade DeVos will be the favorite to win that weight class, but Bennett will definitely have a shot. Moving on to 113, I talked about Brody Teskey. We've talked about him multiple times. Night of conflict leading up to that state champ from 106 last year, so dominant. He dominated Cade at the event out in Council Bluffs Invitational. I'm not for sure what it is, but he teched him, and Cade is ranked number 2 at this weight class as a freshman. And Cade's got a big win over Midkiff at the Waukee Al Garrison duels this weekend. So I think that's kind of where Kirk saw those rankings fall into place based off of the most recent matches that have happened. Gage Perrin from Southeast Polk coming in at number 5. I think that's a real good spot for him based off of how he wrestled Teskey in that big matchup up in Fort Dodge. So right now it's Teskey, and then everybody else I think really fighting for to get to that Saturday night match. He really is a special kid. Another a freshman that comes into these rankings, Lance Runyon from Indianola. I saw him in 7th and 8th grade coming up the ranks, and he's definitely a kid that could upset, in England, a Midkiff, those type of kids, if they don't overlook him. So Look out for that freshman standout from Indianola. He'll definitely make some noise this year. And let's see here. Moving on to 120.
Ryan's a really, really good kid. I think a lot of people have been familiar with coming up through the ranks. We talked about wrestle-offs with DeVos and Biscaglia. Another one to keep an eye on is Sobomina from Jefferson. Has got his hands full with another freshman in the room, and Colton Maston. I know they've had a couple really, really close wrestle-offs there. So keep an eye on Jefferson at 113 to see which guy ends up making the run. I think they're both capable of making the stand at the end of the year.
It's a tough weight class, like I said, right there. After Teskey, unless he has kind of a lapse, I just don't see anybody really challenging him. Moving on to 120, Jacob Allison coming in at number 1, Zach Price at number 2. Huge jump for the Johnston Dragon, going up from 5 to 2nd. He really has had an impressive start to the season. He beat Adam Brown, beat Brendan Baker, and was in a real controversial match this last weekend at the Al Garrison duels with Jacob Allison. Both kind of had calls go their way, and obviously Allison came up on top. I believe it was a 7-5 decision. So that will be a matchup that we're going to get to see in a couple weeks at Johnston. So be on the lookout for that 120-pound weight class. I mean, Zach Price, obviously I'm a little biased because I'm from Johnston, but this was a kid that kind of got beat on throughout the year and really came out of nowhere and got 3rd place last year. Teskey beat him first round, and he came all the way back to get 3rd. So big props to that man. Brendan Baker from Cedar Rapids, Jefferson. After watching him wrestle Price, sometimes I just think, he just got to get his head right, and because he's got some really good on his feet skills. He's got a really good Greco freestyle background, but sometimes I just don't think he puts it all on the mat. That this is his last year. So if he can just figure that out, I think he can put this together to beat a Zach Price, to beat a Jacob Allison and Adam Brown. But right now, not seeing it after the Zach Price match. So moving on to 126, Tristan Lara from Fort Dodge, number 1 ranked wrestler. He took on Nathan Lent at the duel, and what makes Lara so good at this weight class, or just any weight class, he's just a very good offensive and defensive wrestler from his feet. Anytime Lent kind of took a shot, and if he didn't commit to it, Lara committed. He committed to a shot, a reshot, and he scored on almost every single takedown that he took. So he's really been. He impressed me at the conflict at Carver. Lars, did you get a chance to watch him out there? I mean, this kid's on fire.
Yeah, he's really good. He's again, maybe not quite in those really, really top names that people think of with Teskey and Thompson and whatnot, but he probably deserves to be. He's a really underrated, if you can even say that, as being the number 1 kid in 3A. But yeah, Tristan's he's the real deal. He's going to be a big time D1 recruit, and I think he's going to be really tough to beat at this weight.
And speaking of recruits for these Fort Dodge guys, I think Oklahoma, a little nugget, is going to, they're the front runners for a lot of these kids from Fort Dodge, being told that Mark Cody was in town, and they are recruiting all the Fort Dodge kids real hard. Sam Cook, Lara, Teskey. I mean, they're definitely in their ear. Fort Dodge goes down to Oklahoma for a wrestling camp every year, and they're real high on the Sooners. But I know Randy from was there. Paulson was there from Iowa State at that duel, and then I don't think there was anybody from Iowa there, but I know there was Cody. Yeah, UNI was there. Oklahoma was there. Iowa State. There was one other coach that was there that I'm not placing right now. But anyways, so Grant Stotts was ranked number 1 preseason, and he's taken a couple lumps, but he wrestles for Valley, which is arguably one of the top dual teams in the state right now. So Lent, Lara, Stotts, all wrestling for the top 3A schools in the state, in the CIML. So they're going to be tested throughout the whole year here, and they're definitely going to be tested going into districts. So I will be excited to see that. Lent and Stotts actually will be at the same district, so we know that they're going to be on opposite sides. So Lara, Stotts, Lent, they're definitely he's going to match up with one of them in the semis. So I'll be interested to see how that shakes out.
And they're all underclassmen too, which is going to make it even more fun when coming back next year.
Yeah, some guys that jumped into the weight class as far as rankings go. Moreno from Dallas Center Grimes, Jacob Waters from Cedar Fall came in there. So Kirk's got quite a few new guys from 6 on down in this ranking. So make sure you check that out on IAwrestle.com for a full list. 132 really stayed the same. You got Utah at the top from Cedar Rapids Prairie, and then the biggest shaker here was Keenan Cook from Fort Dodge, ranked 7th. Kirk was up at the Fort Dodge Southeast Polk Duel, so he must have saw something from Keenan that he really liked. A guy that I'm a big fan of as well is Joe Howard from Indianola. He's ranked 6th right now. He took a spot down from Zane Mulder. He was ranked at 126, and he looks like he's going to be bumping up to 132. So Zane was ranked 3rd at 126 in the preseason rankings. So 132 is definitely a tough weight class, guys.
Yeah, and Utah is a really, really good kid there at number 1. Had a really big win over number 2. I won't even try to pronounce his name, from Cedar Rapids Kennedy. 5 seasons duels and stuff. So he's solidly number 1 at this weight.
What was that, Eric?
Romidko. That's his name.
Romidko.
There you go.
H is silent. All right.
Like Rovat, the silent H.
There you go. So Romidko at number 2 for Cedar Rapids Prairie. Him and Utah, I'm sure, right there in the same town. I'm sure they get to match up against each other. Moving on to 138, Lembeck from Cedar Rapids Xavier. He remains at the number 1 ranked senior. He's kind of got a lock hold. And I did now I see Bettendorf here, Jackson Gallagher at number 2. He got his 100th win at the KC Stampede. And I got a lot of texts on this. I want to go back to 120, where Jack Wagner's not in these rankings. If you look at the disclaimer, I know I've explained this quite a few times on Twitter and text messages, but our rankers, Kirk, Lars, and Eric, if the way that we do our rankings is if a guy is injured, has missed significant time, has not competed yet, we know there's not going to be wrestling here for a couple months, we leave them out, because if the state wrestling tournament happened today, they would be out. And Wagner, I thought he maybe should have been in these rankings by Kirk, because from what I've been told, he will actually be on the mat just as soon as next week. So he had surgery on his knee. This is out in your guys' neck of the woods. Have you heard any more about Wagner? I know he hurt his knee at the Keith Young in warm-ups.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know he's back on the mat. He's been cleared to wrestle. He's practicing at this point, and I think we'll see him right after the break. But he's a guy who hasn't wrestled yet this year, so it's really tough to leave him in the rankings at this point.
Yeah, I think you're just playing it safe there. You got a big long break over Christmas here, so I'd expect him to be right back at it after Christmas, looking 100%.
So 138, I moved around back to 120, but this is a weight class, guys. Lembeck, Gallagher from Bettendorf, and Nelson Brands, sophomore. Everyone knows that Brands name from Iowa City West. He was ranked 5th in the preseason. He's up to number 3. And Lars, I know you know a little bit more about Nelson Brands than I do, so I'll let you kind of share some light in kind of how his freshman and the start of his sophomore season has gone.
Yeah, freshman, he was kind of up and down. Kind of wrestling up in weight probably to most people. He's not a real big kid at this weight. Last year, a lot of people kept waiting for him to drop down. He never did. He went into conference and had just a phenomenal tournament, went in conference, and then went to districts and didn't have the kind of day he wanted, didn't qualify for state. But he's the real deal. Really, really good kid. As he keeps getting stronger and bigger, I think that Nelson's going to really turn himself into a really top-level kid. And I know he's got some nice wins already this year, and I expect him to keep moving on up the ranks.
Moving to 145, a guy that I've been a big fan of for the last 3 years, Michael Zachary from Dowling Catholic. He's been really the heart of Dowling Catholic, kind of holding that name in the rankings. Dowling's rebuilding. Seems like they have been for the last 10 years, but this guy steps in at number 1 as a senior, and a big favorite for me at 145. But you've got Spencer and Shapiro at 2 and 3, and then you've got a guy named Cade Lara from Fort Dodge coming at number 4, a sophomore. I mean, Alec Chazik at ranked number 6 from Johnson. This is a tough weight class.
Yeah.
What are you guys' thoughts on this?
I was kind of hoping we get to see Shapiro, Carter Happel at Battle of Waterloo. That didn't end up happening. Neville's from Pleasant Valley. He got a pin over Leisure from Clear Lake, so that was pretty impressive win over state champ there. So Zachary definitely has some challengers here. Yeah,
Clymer from Linmar is another one to keep an eye out for. Wasn't a big name coming into the season. All he did was go up and win the Independence Invitational, which is a really, really good tournament. Beat Pekanowski, who's rated in 2A. Beat Fox, who's rated in 2A. Beat Gerke from Xavier, really, really good kid. I think his only losses are to Brands and Neville's. So Clymer's got some really good wins, and definitely a name that I've been trying to keep an eye out for this year.
I mean, that Clymer from Linmar, he's the only guy that jumped in these rankings that weren't in them previous. Kirk didn't change anything in his rankings besides jumping Johnny in there at number 8. So this is a tough weight class. Again, I think Zachary's at the top of it, but good to see a kid, his senior year jump into these rankings.
Yeah.
And
Colton Mertens, too, already has, I believe, 2 wins over Wilton, state runner-up at number 2 in 1A. So
Greenwald.
No, not Greenwald.
Brisker.
Brisker. He's already got 2 wins over Brisker this year, so he's had a really good year so far for Mertens.
152, Colton Klingenpill, Council Bluffs, Thomas Jefferson, Night of Conflict wrestler, ranked number 1. He's not moving anywhere from this weight class. The top 3 guys, Southard and Briggs, Lewis Central, Cedar Rapids, Jefferson for Briggs. What do you think of Christian Pleasant Valley dropping from 2nd to 4th here? He's coming from 138 up to 152. And maybe some miscommunication as far as where he was going to be prior to the year. But is Briggs, is he not on that level just yet, guys?
Well, I don't know. We were kind of confused on what he was doing. There was word Foot wasn't wrestling this year. But then he ended up wrestling at the Battle of Waterloo, and I believe he beat Tristan Johnson, and then I think Neville's beat Jennings. Was that right, Ross? So I don't know. He's definitely capable. He's definitely on that level. But
so
personally, I think Klingenpill's almost an underrated name statewide. Really, really good kid. I think he is number 1 at this weight. But Christian Foot's definitely one to keep an eye out for. they had a new coach at Pleasant Valley this year as well with Ben Euchre leaving. So, I think it was a little bit of miscommunication there, trying to get a hold of Coach Larson and stuff like that. Wempham's a really good freshman here. Another familiar name, the Wempham family there in Linn-Mar. So keep an eye on him as a freshman. And then Colin Conway. Marion jumped up to 3A this year. And they actually there's two Conway brothers, but both have been having nice seasons. But Colin's really made some noise already this year. Came all the way from unranked to number 5.
Moving on to 160, some guys at Des Moines Lincoln, ranked number 6, Tad Griffith. He's a sophomore, and this is going to be a tough weight class here. You've got Kothi from Valley, a senior. He's now ranked number 1. And I think any time to jump into this 160 pound weight class, 170 as a sophomore is pretty impressive. I mean, Austin Garcia, he's a senior from Johnson. He's just underneath him, and I know how tough he is in the room. So, I think he deserves definitely some props for his this first part of the season. Where do you guys see in these rankings? Saracen, he's up from 4 to 2nd. Is this there's a lot of parity at this weight class?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the top 3, they might be kind of on their own level there. I mean, Rashid might be pushing them, but obviously Hartzler was number 1. It's pretty top heavy here, I think.
Yeah, I know Hartzler's already got a couple losses. He lost to Paul, who's number 1 in 1A. He lost to Johnson, who's number 1 in 2A. So not bad losses by any stretch, but he has lost a couple matches. Ben Saracen is a kid that just, again, keeps climbing. Had a good freshman year. Then he goes out and he's an All-American in Fargo, and now having an even better sophomore year. So I think Saracen is, to me, maybe even the favorite at this weight, but there's definitely those at least top 4 are definitely all in the mix at this point.
A name here too that you're going to be familiar with. A lot of people that are listening is Carter Roweeder from Iowa City West. He makes the rankings here this set. And what do we need to know about this Roweeder for at Iowa City West?
Well, he pinned Bryce Paul from Alburnett this last weekend. So there's a guy who Bryce Paul beat Shea Hartzler, and then Roweeder pins him. So definitely look out for him.
That's those are two big. That's a big win there, and to come in at number 10, I think might maybe put a little bullseye on his back. So. But, he gets that recognition from Kirk at 160. Moving on to 170, Marcus Coleman. This guy is I've got to see him wrestle twice now. He is definitely a top recruit from Ames, Iowa. He was ranked number 1, obviously preseason as well. Brandon Haas, number 3. Egley from Fort Dodge. He's ranked 2nd. Moving out is Edel from Marshalltown. He suffered some losses at the Valley Invite 2 weekends ago, but this weight class kind of, I think, has some more parity in as well. Austin Stotts coming in at number 8 for Valley. I feel like I don't really know where he's at. I think maybe a little bit of this ranking has to do with him being at Valley. So it'll be interesting to see where Austin falls into place here for 170. You guys got anything to add here? I mean, Claiborne at number 4. He beat Josh at the Valley Invite like on the last 5 seconds. So those two could flip flop, I think, in these rankings. But anybody else that's sticks out to you guys at 170?
Yeah, I think that's a tough break for Edel, sliding all the way from 2 to 5. I believe that was his only loss actually this year. Was that last 5 seconds to Claiborne? Really, this top 5, Coleman might be a step above the rest. He's big time. He's Fargo runner up. He's a huge Division I recruit. But the next four, Egley, Haas, Claiborne, Edel, I think you throw them in a hat and anybody could beat anybody on any given day. It's just a real tough weight to rank, I think.
I think Haas is undefeated on the year, I believe. I'm pulling up his profile now. He does have one loss to out of state. But, yeah, he's been having a good year, so definitely a guy who can challenge there. But like Lars said, I think Coleman's the top guy there.
And Marcus is he going to Iowa State?
I don't believe he's committed.
Yeah, he hasn't committed yet, but I think I've heard the leanest to Iowa State, obviously in Ames. I've heard that a couple of times, but he has not committed yet. So that'd be a guy to look out. That'll be a guy to look for committing maybe here after the season. So 182. I'll be honest. This is a weight class that I'm not familiar with. Unfortunately, I wish Kirk was here for this one. But from what I can tell from his rankings, 1 through 4 stayed the same. Some guys that moved into the lineup would be Peyton Williams from Marshalltown, unranked senior. Now he's ranked 7th. Dreckman from Cedar Rapids, Jefferson. He's also senior, unranked. He came in. One of the biggest movers on the downward is Patovich from Southeast Polk. He's gone from 5th to 10th, and Kirk must have seen something up at Fort Dodge that it was a real slow match that Patovich had up there, and didn't really take advantage of some things that he could have. So I think I didn't have any input on Patovich's ranking going from 5th to 10th, but. Do you guys know anything a little bit more about, David Carr at number 2, Max Lyon from Western Dubuque here at the top of this weight class?
Yeah, I mean, Max Lyon, another guy who's probably definitely your number 1 guy there. He was runner-up as a sophomore at 170. So anytime you have an underclassman like that doing good things at the upper weights, they're legit.
Yeah, Max Lyon's definitely a kid that been keeping a close eye on for a long time. He's really, really good and definitely deserves that number 1 ranking. Bartel from Mason City has quietly been putting together a really, really good year as well. Definitely been moving up the rankings. I know he had a big win over Jameer Moore, and I think his only loss was a really close match with Lyon. I think it was 8-7. So Bartel's right there in the mix. And Isaiah Cox was a kid that I really was not familiar with going into the state tournament last year. But if you've never seen this kid, you want to talk about a put-together high school kid. This kid is athletic and strong, really good wrestler. So be interested to see how Isaiah Cox matches up with some of these guys when they get to the state tournament.
Moving on to 195 and 220. These 2 weight classes, I think, have 2 guys at the top that really have everybody else looking at them. Sam Cook from Fort Dodge. The guy's got thighs that can barely even fit into this dang singlet. I mean, this kid is massive. Andy Hamilton kind of had a funny tweet. He went out and dominated his kid from Southeast Polk, and he said that he scored a couple of touchdowns too. So, I mean, a standout football star, record holder. I think at Fort Dodge, I think he got the wins record this weekend. Are you guys familiar with that for Fort Dodge? With him, obviously, a good, rich history up there.
Yeah, I think he was 2 behind going into the tournament this weekend. So I believe he would have passed. Trying to remember who it was for the all-time wins up there, but definitely Cook's a really, really good wrestler, really good football player, as you kind of alluded to there a little bit. I know he's got some good offers on the table for wrestling, especially. I know you talked about him with Oklahoma being really hot and heavy on him. I think some state schools as well. So be interested to see where Cook ends up, and hopefully he decides to keep wrestling in college and not go the football route.
I mean, this isn't the first time that I've heard Mark Cody in the town of Fort Dodge, and it's not for Tom Thumb. I mean, he's there for these. He's there for these wrestlers. So I'll be surprised if Cook goes the wrestling route, but he's obviously having success there at that weight class. Some guys that moved into that 195-pound weight class. Logan Buck from Dallas Center Grimes, he's in at 7th. Then you've got Duncan Lee, a kid from Newton. That Newton hasn't had a whole lot of kids that they've been in the rankings here lately. So there's a guy from Newton coming in at number 10. And then at 220, mentioned Ethan Anderson. This guy, we've been heavy on him. He's a Night of Conflict wrestler, former Mizzou recruit, now going to Oklahoma State. Scored 27 points on last Tuesday before he got a fall in the first period. And this is Ethan Anderson is a guy that is quick and can score points. Definitely has a lot of throws in his arsenal. So I think if he wants to go on to that next level, he'll have to perfect some of those shots. But, there's only a handful of guys that really could push him this year, and that guy would be Rocky Lombardi from Valley, football star, a junior. He was ranked 6th at 195 in preseason rankings. He's really the only guy I see possibly that could push Ethan. What I really wanted to see last week, guys, is Sam Cook and Ethan Anderson wrestle. Didn't get to see it, unfortunately. We started at 220, and that was just something Fort Dodge isn't willing to do. I think if it might have ended at 220, and if it was in nobody's hands, maybe we could have seen that happen. But they just kind of traded points. But that is a matchup I would want to see, because Ethan would have a tough time scoring on Sam Cook. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I really want to see Anderson and Lombardi wrestle. My guess would be somebody's getting headlocked in that match. I know Lombardi's got a little height on him, so that might benefit him a little bit. Watching him wrestle the Battle of Waterloo this weekend, he bumped up to heavyweight a couple times. I think he was about a foot or two taller than most of the guys he wrestled. So have those two ever wrestled before? Do you guys know, Lombardi and Anderson?
Not that I know of, because I think Lombardi has been down a couple of weight classes. I don't think Lombardi was at 97 or 95 last year. I think he might have been at, I think he was at 95 last year, maybe even lighter than that, maybe 82.
Yeah.
I don't think these guys have had a chance to wrestle each other yet. So hopefully a Valley Southeast Polk, they will see each other at districts. So that's just a brutal district. I mean, Valley, Southeast Polk, Waukee is there. So we'll get to see that matchup before the state wrestling tournament, obviously. So you're gonna get your wish, Eric.
Good. I'm glad.
I don't want you to make a prediction yet. I mean, I've got some flack from some Southeast Polk people, definitely being on that Fort Dodge train, and I'm still going to be riding on that Fort Dodge train, because I think they got some kids that can win state titles. Not that Southeast Polk doesn't, but I think Fort Dodge has a few more horses in the stable, as I like to say. But that's another topic. I needed to get off that Southeast Polk Fort Dodge tangent that I keep going on. So tell me when to stop.
I just want to see somebody get thrown. I'm a Greco guy, so I want to see someone go flying.
Both of those guys know how to do it. So
maybe you and Jensman Smith. I don't know. Somebody's going to go flying.
Yeah, Jessman knows how to throw too. I saw him wrestle at the IAwrestle Beach Nationals.
Yeah, he was flying from Anderson, right?
Anderson headlocked Jessman and didn't get called a fall right away. So that was
Jessman. I know you're going to be listening. I think he had you.
After Jessman's tweet to me about a little troll that is obsessed with seems like everybody at IAwrestle I'm guessing I know where he's from or who he's associated with, but he gave that guy, a special guy, a shout out. So Jessman, if you're listening, you're on my naughty list. Anyway, so moving on to heavyweight, Gannon Gremmel, Dubuque Hempstead. He's the top guy for them, ranked number 1. That's when we talk about matchups, seeing Gremmel and Ethan Anderson. When we're talking about the night of conflict, we were kind of thinking about doing that matchup, or remind me kind of why we never made that happen.
They've seen each other before. I think everybody's seen Gremmel and Anderson. So we were just hoping to get some other guys, quality guys. It was tough getting people for 220 and 285 for that event because it was a Friday night during football season. So it took a little while to get them matches. So for a while we thought about it, but we were able to lock up a couple of good kids for them. So, we just wanted to separate them and get them somebody different that they haven't necessarily seen before.
So that wraps up our 1A, 2A, 3A rankings. We'll go through these 3A tournament rankings first. Fort Dodge keeps the number 1 spot with 9 ranked wrestlers. Southeast Polk comes in at number 2. They were there as well, and Valley in at 3. Waukee is the biggest mover in there, again, with Cade DeVos moving into the number 2 ranking at 113. Again, Viscaglia, DeVos could go anywhere from 6 to 13. Somebody's got to stay away from Teskey, though, at 13. Dubuque Hempstead, they are ranked 5th. Pleasant Valley dropped a few spots from 4th to 6th. Cedar Rapids Prairie, Cedar Rapids Jefferson, they're both tied for 7th. And then Johnston got themselves into the tournament rankings. They've got 8 ranked wrestlers now. They brought it looks like they got a freshman in at 106, Cade Moss. He got a ranking. And then Western Dubuque, they've got 3 ranked wrestlers at also tied for 9th. Moving on here a little bit about dual team rankings. This is something that we decided to do last year, guys. There hasn't been a site in the state, or there has been something in the past. I think Des Moines Register, Dan McCool put something together where some media folks put this together where they decided the dual team rankings. We felt the void was there, so last year we did this, and we decided we obviously wanted to continue it this year. When you look at these dual team rankings that we put out on the 15th compared to the IWCO A dual team rankings that came out 3 days later, which is compiled from coaches throughout the state. I've said this multiple times before. Not every single coach ranks. I don't think they don't turn them in. So you get some bias from, a western part of the state that might rank their, team just because they see them. I mean, it makes sense. They see a team more often than a team they'll see in Southeast Iowa. Why would they give that team a ranking over somebody that they see all the time or somebody that they're buddy with? I get it to an extent, but the IWCOA rankings has a lot of these are some people that can stay home from the regional dual tournaments because of it. I mean, what are your thoughts when you look at our rankings compared to what the coaches put out?
Well, I know as far as 1A goes, I'm just sitting here looking at the IWCA rankings for 1A, and I mean, I don't really blame the coaches because, I mean, they got so much other stuff to worry about. But just looking at it, it's just people just listing off names that are familiar to them. I see Southeast Warren in there about 6 or 7, and they've been having 4 or 5 forfeits all year long. So that's going to be tough for them to beat a lot of teams. I have Wapsie Valley higher, and I don't even see them in the top 16 here. There's just, like I said, it's just coaches just throwing in teams that are familiar to them. But it's just I think something needs to change. Me, Lars, Kirk, you, Ross, we're all looking at these teams all year long, and we know who's good, who's beat who. And I mean, just the other day when we were doing rankings, I know, Lars, you said it took you 10 hours to do them. It took me just about as long. So, the coaches aren't putting that much time into looking at results, and I don't blame them for not doing it. They don't have time to. So, I just think something needs to change there with how they're put together and how the rankings are done.
I'm with you. I'm not saying that the coaches shouldn't do this. There should just be maybe another party after that kind of sifts through them a little bit. I don't know if the high school athletic association does that, but I think a lot of it kind of has to do with what they look at for what maybe the predicament puts out. We put out for our tournament rankings, and then that's what they put in for their dual team rankings, which we all know are two completely different animals. So, I've talked to coaches about this already. They're on board. I think we just got to make it happen. So if you're a coach out there listening, you're an athlete, and you don't want to stay home. You've got a good team, but maybe somebody's buddy with somebody. I mean, there's a 2-7 team ranked in 3A right now, and I know there's a lot of teams out there, and it's hard to compete at that level. But it's got to be just there's so much time that they have to do with their family, getting practices ready, and now they have to they're inputting everything into track. A lot of them probably have managers that do that for them, but you guys know there's 1A coaches out there that probably can barely even open up a computer to do this. So now we're asking them to do rankings across the state. It's just tough. So, moving on, I guess, in the state of Iowa, really want to just focus this week on the rankings. As you go to Christmas, you can listen to this podcast, tell people about it as you're driving, give them something to look forward to, get their name recognition. Next week, we are going to be at the Midlands Championships, over 400 wrestlers that are going to be competing. So we'll do a play-by-play of that every single session. It's going to be a lot of hours going back and forth. We'll cover really all the Division I ranked wrestlers and NAI there, Grandview, Iowa State, but we'll try to focus a little bit as much as we can on Iowa guys because we know we've got a lot of fans that will be listening there. Obviously, people tuning into this blab and potentially dangerous on iTunes and Stitcher. Hopefully, I will make it there on time if Jason Bryant doesn't keep me out late in Evanston the night before. So last year was my kind of first year at the Midlands Championship, getting my feet wet. Scott Casper kind of kept me out a little bit late too, but this year I will do my best to bring you guys as much news as I possibly can on IAwrestle and takedownwrestle.com. For Lars, Schares, thank you guys for coming on and dropping your knowledge. I wish we had Kirk on here too, but you guys killed it.
Sorry, one other quick thing. Not a great subject to talk about, but on behalf of everybody here, I just thoughts and prayers to everybody up in Spencer, up in Northwest Iowa. Lost a great wrestler, great kid in Austin Roberts this week. Not much you can say about it, but definitely thinking of everybody up there and hoping that they find whatever they need to find to get themselves through all this.
And this is a subject that no one ever likes to talk about. Talked a little bit about it on KCWI Great Day. So a positive thing to take from this is the wrestling community has really embraced and got around this community, and they've raised over $41,000, which was this morning. I haven't checked it this evening. USA Wrestling has helped it out, and really just getting that out there. It's sad that a death in wrestling has to get the recognition from a USA Today or some of these big news outlets. I get it. It's sometimes bad news is good news to some of these networks. So again, Lars, thanks for bringing that up, and our condolences to everybody up north. We will follow the story and share what news we do have on that. But this is something that they're going to have to live with for the rest of the year. One of their star wrestlers, and they'll do our best. But we got to do our best to rally behind them, rally around Spencer and the whole state of Iowa. So Want to tell everyone as well for this podcast, if you want to win a towel tapper from toweltapper.com, make sure you rate and review our podcast. The best review will win a tapper each and every single week. So it's pretty easy. Just get on iTunes. We'll tweet out a link for it tomorrow and to help you out with that. And for Tony Hager, the rest of the guys here at IAwrestle, make sure you check out our full rankings at IAwrestle.com tonight, tomorrow, over Christmas break. Talk about it at the dinner table. The presents aren't the best. Tell them to go over to IAwrestle and check out that little Christmas present we have for you. So, again, thanks for listening and checking out Blab with us. Until next time.